I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. Hey, everybody. I'm really excited to introduce you today to Sarah Pousho, who is the co-founder and CEO of Space Bridge Partners. Sarah, I'm eager to delve deep into your career journey today. So can you give us about a 90-second overview of what it is you do and why you got into it?
Sure, Donna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I co-founded Space Bridge Partners with two other co-founders. We came out of stealth mode a little over a year ago. And what we do is connect funders or private capital with space missions focused on exploration, science, and education. So we're not a VC firm. We raise money for missions, not for companies. So that's what we do in a nutshell. But I have not been in the space sector my whole career. I took a very circuitous route to get here, but there's the elevator pitch for you.
Yeah, well, and I love that. So I'd love to hear about that pivotal life change. What happened? How did you transition?
Well, I've been interested in space my whole life. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an astronaut. I did all my, junior high and high school papers on space wherever I could. My senior project I did at Vandenberg Air Force Base and got to see where the shuttle launch happened and all that good stuff. So I've always been excited about it. My dream was to go to college or university and major in astronomy, then get my pilot's license and then go be an astronaut for NASA. And ended up going to UC Berkeley and majoring in rhetoric instead so that I could actually graduate. And so that's took me on a little bit of a detour. I got a temp job right after I graduated that ended up turning into a full-time position. And I was at that company for 5 years, which led me to another company and another company. And pretty soon I had 30 years in consumer product sector. So I've always worked with licensed products and headed up sales and licensing teams. So negotiating sales programs with all the big chain stores in North America and Western Europe and a little bit in Asia Pacific. And then negotiating global licensing agreements with people like Disney and Paramount and Hasbro and Warner Brothers. So a lot of that interaction, a lot of that negotiation and consultative selling, figuring out the best programs, both for the licensors and for the retailers. But it was never where my heart was. I loved doing it, and I feel like I was pretty good at doing it. But I was always interested in the space sector and felt like I had missed it. I had missed my chance. But one of my best friends, Guillermo Sunline, who I met at UC Berkeley, we bonded over the fact that we both wanted to be astronauts. And so we've been friends ever since. We've been in touch ever since we graduated back in the 1900s. He hates when I say that. And one day he made a post on LinkedIn, yet another post about what he was doing in the space sector. And I just DM'd him and said, I'm living vicariously through your LinkedIn posts. And he said, what are you doing Saturday? Let's talk. So he was in Switzerland at the time. I was here in San Francisco Bay Area, and we talked for 3 hours about what it would take for me to make the transition and how it now is the perfect time because the space sector needs people that understand, sales and marketing and finances. It's not just all scientists and literally rocket scientists, right? So he really helped me out. He took me under his wing and mentored me and told me what kinds of conferences to go to. He went with me to a few conferences. He told me I could dig through his LinkedIn connections and he would make the introductions. And pretty soon I was starting to introduce him to people in the space sector that he had never met before. And I just started using all my vacation time going to space conferences and meeting new people and trying to figure out what kind of job that I would be good at. And eventually I decided in 2023, by the end of the year, I am going to make the transition. So I got a life coach who helped me figure out what my path looked like and what kind of position I should be going for. And at the same time, Guillermo, who's a serial entrepreneur, said, I've always had this idea for Space Bridge Partners, and I think you would be good at running it. I don't have time. I have all these other companies to do. And I just said, yes, like that would be perfect. I would want to be CEO because then I could build the company I've always wanted to work for, but it would be in a great spot. I'd be in between the space part, which I absolutely love, and putting together interesting funding programs, which is what I'm used to doing for the last 30 years, and getting to talk to brand sponsors and high net worth individuals and media partners. And it's my dream job. It's my sweet spot. It's using all my superpowers. And so that's how it came to be. And I took over officially in September of 2023, and we came out of stealth mode in January of 2024. And here we are.
And talk about the stars aligning. I
right?
mean, that
Literally,
sounds perfect, right?
figuratively.
It literally. So that's amazing. So, and it sounds like you're very involved with promoting women or girls in the STEMs area, and that's totally outside of my knowledge base. So tell me a little bit about how you're working with younger people, getting them interested in that area.
Sure. Well, science was always my favorite subject growing up. Every class, junior high, high school, college, physics, chemistry, biology. I was always really interested in those subjects. And then, got distracted after I graduated from university, except for one of the consumer products companies I worked for was called Goldie Blocks. And it was founded by a mechanical engineer, Debbie Sterling, who told me that she was one of only 3 women in her graduating class. She went to Stanford. And that just shocked me. And so I did some more research and learned more from her and realized that girls drop out of STEM fields, at least this was the case 10 or 15 years ago. They drop out of STEM fields around the age of 14 for various different reasons. And I see sense a shift in that. Right now, but I really want to encourage women. Obviously women are in the minority at the space conferences I go to, although there's a lot more parity when I'm in European conferences. I will note that. So anytime I get the chance to speak or mentor kids, I will take it. So I was on a panel of women at a conference here in the Bay Area last year. And one of the questions was, how do you see women in your field? Like, is it noticeable that there are fewer women? And the questions around that were asked. And there was a huge age range. I was the oldest person on the panel. There were a couple of younger people who were engineers working at JPL. One was in the fashion. She was a fashion designer working now in the space sector. And then there was a student at UC Berkeley there. And the student at UC Berkeley was the last person to speak. We went down the table and all talked about uncomfortable situations we had experienced, and then also some positive experiences we had and how noticeable it was to be a female in the sector. And it got to the female college student, and she's like, I have never noticed a thing. And she's an engineering person at UC Berkeley. And so I just thought, okay, great. And I see a shift now. And recently there was it was announced, the crew of one of a new space flight was announced, and it happened to be all female. Blue Origin announced it. They did not say first all female crew. They just announced, here are these astronauts, which I really appreciated. You didn't have to call it out, because guess what? We can do the same thing, right? That's a roundabout way of saying how I try to mentor. I'm also going to be mentoring some high school seniors from my alma mater, my high school alma mater. Over the summer, I'm speaking at a space club at UC Berkeley, a new space club. So anytime I get the chance to speak, or if I'm offered to mentor people, or anytime I can get in front of people that are younger than me, or females that are like me that maybe want to transition but have already started their career in a different field, I'll just take the opportunity. And luckily people have heard about me, so I've gotten a lot of people reaching out. So I usually don't say no, because I figure it's a good teaching moment for me, and also can help another person.
Absolutely. And I think it's really fascinating because just somebody a little bit younger than you that's starting out in her college career right now is not noticing the very things that you experience, and
Yeah.
that's pretty quick change. So,
Yeah.
tell me what do you see as the biggest problem in your industry now? And I have a suspicion that it might involve lack of women, but tell me more about what you see as the biggest problem in your industry now and what you're doing to solve that.
Actually, I think the biggest problem has to do with what we're doing at Space Force Partners is that there's all these really vital science missions and exploration missions that need to happen that rely on government funding, no matter what country you're from, not just the US, but they rely on government funding or even donations from university alumni, and they're not getting enough funding. They might get some funding, but not enough to cover the whole cost of the mission. And that's what we're trying to help, because just because there's no commercial ROI on these missions doesn't mean that they're not super important. And a lot of the science that they're studying will help us on planet Earth. Things that are being done in zero G that cannot be done on Earth will help developing more effective medicines, for example. There's one mission that we're helping out that actually, as a side effect or an offshoot of the studies happening on that mission, they happen to develop technology that helps increase the success rate of in vitro fertilization here on Earth. So there's tons of these missions that really need help to get into space because they don't have enough funding from donations or from government grants. And we have missions from all over the world in our pipeline right now that need help. So I think that's the number one thing is when people hear the word space, they think of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, and you have to be a billionaire. And so, oh, well, I guess that's it for me. And that's not true at all. So I think educating the public on the situation of the current space sector and how much more private entities are getting involved and how many universities and nonprofits are involved and have these crucial missions. That's our biggest hurdle right now is educating the public on the opportunities that exist and the amazing innovations that are happening in the sector.
Well, that was really helpful for me. And I have to be honest and say Elon Musk was the first person I thought of when I read your background.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's what we know, right? It's
Right.
what the outside of that realm. That's what we think about. But I appreciate what you're doing though, because there is so much more. And what I hear is that even though there's not an immediate return on investment for people that put money into this, it is life changing in so many levels.
Yes.
And you got to have the research. I mean, if you can't do the research to create, we're just stuck in the same place we've always been.
Yeah.
So are you actively seeking donors through your business? Explain a little bit to me about what you're actually doing when you go out to
Sure.
communities.
Yeah. So when we originally launched, the space sector was like, holy smokes, we need your help. And we got tons of mission organizers reaching out to us saying, here's how much I need. I've got the team put together. Here's the experimentation we're doing. I even got tours through a lab at one major US university, and they showed us the technology that they're going to be sending to space, which was really exciting. But they all said that they needed money, right? So now we spent the first year out of stealth mode building out potential missions that we could try to fund. And they asked for anywhere from $1 million to close to $1 billion, depending on whether or not there were humans involved in the space flight, depending on how many missions they had in their mission pipeline and planning. And so now we're trying to help fund the missions through 3 different verticals. One is, as you mentioned, donations from high net worth individuals or their foundations or family foundations, which would be amazing to have your name tied to these legacy making missions. The second way is by connecting the missions with the right brand sponsor. So those marketing activation dollars could help fund the cost of the mission, and using that mission that has developed the IVF technology as kind of an offshoot. As an example, that would be a perfect sponsorship opportunity for somebody that makes diapers, a brand that makes diapers, or a brand that maybe a pharma company that's interested in women's health. So there's some amazing tie-ins that can come out of each of the missions. And that's where we kind of pride ourselves on curating the right connections for those missions, because we're not just saying, hey, everybody, here's a bunch of missions. Anyone? We're trying to really be careful and focus on the people's interests and needs, especially with the philanthropic organizations and high net worth individuals. And the last vertical where we look to raise money is through licensing agreements with media partners. So if somebody wants to do a documentary and they want access to the team, they could pay a royalty to gain that exclusive access. And then those royalties could be used towards the cost of the mission.
Wow. So now I'm getting a clear understanding of why your skill set was needed so much. You've got all your STEM people that think differently. And then now you've got all the sales and marketing and all of that expertise in addition to the passion for that industry. Wow.
Exactly. And helping the mission organizers, they might not even never need to talk to the funders. They can focus on what they do best, which is the science, right? But we can also coach them and say, let's talk about these things in front of these people and maybe don't bring up this part. Or, we've had a couple of mission organizers say things like, well, I have 4 missions, but the first one doesn't really count. And it's like, okay, that's important for me to know where you stand on that, but let's not say that in front of a potential funder, because you still have to do that mission to get to missions 2, 3, and 4, right? So those are some of the ways that we can offer value to both sides of the table.
And that is awesome. And we can all use coaching in that way for sure, if they're open to it. So that's good. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear, with all of everything that's going on right now, so much change so quickly. I'm curious to know how you see the industry changing over the next 5 to 10 years, and how are you actually staying on top of all those changes?
Well, that's a big question. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be, at least in the US, but actually in most countries that we're working with, more than one administration, right? So the space is changing with every administration. I think in the United States, there's an opportunity for more commercial and more non-government organizations to get involved. And I'm already seeing that with new companies being launched. There's plenty of VCs that focus just on space companies. So I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity in the space sector in the US. And I think kind of by proxy, that will happen also in Europe. There's growing programs through ESA, the European Space Agency, as well as in New Zealand. Rocket Lab originated there. They now are based in Southern California. But there's huge space companies that are growing. There's small space companies that are launching. I think the opportunities are going to become way more widespread, and that the more people are educated about what we're doing and about what other non-governmental agencies are doing, the more money will flow into those sectors and help spur innovation. I think this innovation happening in space is going to be fast forwarded, and it's just going to be, we're going to see amazing things happening in shorter timelines than we ever imagined possible. And humans are going to be going farther and spending longer times in space. And then there'll be a lot more technology that's developed there that can help people on Earth, especially with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, helping to end hunger, helping to provide clean water supplies, helping to provide needed medicine in many places. So I think that's the thing is innovation is going to be unlike we've ever seen in this sector over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think within 10 years, we might even see people landing on Mars. And I know some people who think that that's bonkers, but based on how quickly innovation is happening, I think in 10 years, it could totally be doable.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to share this with you. I actually had an interview recently with a woman who works a lot with AI and the things that she was talking about in our homes, just because of AI. It's kind of like me going, "Ooh, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a robot in my house, but what might that look like?" And it literally is becoming a reality. And the same with when you say somebody living on Mars, I'm like, "Oh, okay." It's happening, right? It's definitely happening. Well, I'm grateful that you're at the forefront in helping to educate everybody on the opportunities and what's going on out there. Let me ask you a question. I'm going to shift to more personal. Sure. What has been the biggest challenge that you faced thus far, either in your personal life or professional life, that's shaped the way that you're doing business today?
I think the biggest challenge is realizing that the money never goes as far as you think it's going to go. I've worked at a lot of startups across my career. I've also started my own consulting business. And it's I've been bootstrapping this company now for about 15 months or 15 to 18 months now. And you always think that you have a longer runway than you do. So I think that's been my biggest challenge, is how to be as frugal as possible, but still, put together a really good product and a really amazing team. I've been very, very fortunate with the people that have helped us get to where we are today. Many of them for little or no pay so far. So that's going to be changing very shortly, which I'm excited to hear. But I think being very conscious of your numbers, being very conscious of your burn rate is a huge tip to any entrepreneur out there, no matter what business you're in. And then once you think you know what your runway is, maybe cut it by a third or half, just to be as safe as possible.
Oh, that sounds awesome. And Sarah, I have to say, you just used a phrase I think I'm going to have to use, as a financial planner and working with people, just making smart decisions about their money. A lot of times it's, looking at how much you're spending and where you're spending your money is in line with your
Right.
priorities and goals, right? But when you said burn rate, I was like, ooh, because people hate the word budget and expenses. So, but yeah, let's take a look at your burn rate.
Exactly. Right.
I think that resonates with me. Awesome. So another personal question: if you could have lunch with anybody at all, living or deceased, who would that be and why?
That was such a hard question. I think that was one of the questions you sent to me beforehand, and I think I might have changed my answer on this a couple times, but I would love to have lunch with JFK, President Kennedy. When he announced that moonshot, I'd like to have lunch with him right around then, because that was, I was barely born when we set foot on the moon, and I think that's might have had a hand in me being so interested in space, because that was what they talked about for the 10 years after I was born, was all about the Apollo program and the shuttle, and then the shuttle program in the 80s. So I'd love to talk to Kennedy to just hear his personal reasons for the moonshot, which I know had a lot to do with USSR at that time. But it would be great to pick his brain and hear about where that came from. And then, unfortunately, he didn't get to live to see the success of it. But it would be really just being there at the very beginning before the Apollo program. That would be a dream lunch.
Yeah, I think that sounds fabulous as well. So, and you're not the first person that's brought him up, but for different reasons. So I know, right? So very fascinating. So if people wanted to reach out to you, learn more about the work that you're doing, contribute to the work that you're doing, all of the things, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can either check out our website, which is about to be relaunched. It's spacebridgepartners.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And you can reach me. You'll need my email to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's sarah@spacebridgepartners.com.
Simple enough.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, you've been a fabulous guest today, and I encourage everybody that has interest, especially if you've got those children that are interested in STEM, because this lady's going to be able to point you in the right direction and making a difference in our future. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.